Well, hello and welcome to this week's episode where I'm going to be talking about how you can get over your ex and stop blaming yourself. Many of you over the many years have written into me saying that you just can't seem to get over either the betrayal of a past relationship or believing that that person was the one that got away, basically, and that you're still thinking about it. For some of you, it is most recent. For others, it's been years. For some people, it's been decades. So I just figured I would take this episode to give you some ideas of how you can move on, why you need to move on, and how to stop blaming yourself and the other person as well. So I can start this episode really with a question to you. Have you been in this situation? Have you ever either been pining away for someone where you're hoping they're going to change their mind, you hope it's going to turn around, that perhaps there's some time in the future that you guys will get back together, although you don't have any evidence that is pointing your life in that direction? Or do you have regrets that you can't stop ruminating about, or were you betrayed in some way and you can't stop ruminating about the betrayal? Any of those things? Yes. If you are nodding your head yes, whether you're watching this or listening to it on the podcast, have no fear. This episode is for you. So let's start with regret, shall we? My mother, Terri Cole, would tell you that regret is a wasted emotion. So that isn't to say that we shouldn't mourn things. We hoped something was going to go a particular way, but it didn't. And so what we're really doing is mourning the way that we thought it was going to be, the way that we hoped that it was going to go. When you think about the essence of regret, what it actually is, it's wishing that you had done something different, wishing that you had reacted differently. And there's nowhere to go from that place, right? Because we don't have the power to turn back the hands of time. We don't have a time machine to go back to that situation. So my advice, if you're having a lot of regrets or if you keep ruminating about regrets, is to really get willing to get your hands dirty, right? In every situation, every crappy situation, let's visualize that like it's a crap stew. In every one of those situations, there are gems of wisdom for you. But what must you do to get those gems of wisdom? Well, you have to get your hands dirty. You have to be willing to really look with curiosity at what happened. This also requires you to give up that victimized position, because even if someone did wrong you, in relationships, we are wronging and righting each other all the time, right? This is part of what a relationship is. We make mistakes, we course correct, we say we're sorry, we hope that the other person forgives us depending on how egregious the action was. But it's like there has to be this place where you're willing to look at your own behavior, even if someone did the wrong thing, even if someone was unfaithful. Even in these sort of extreme situations, you were 50% of the dance that you were doing in that relationship. So we have to be able to move it out of blame and regret. And we have to be able to move it into something that will change something, change the way you're feeling. And that's only through doing your own work, being willing to look at your 50%. So much of the time, clients would tell me, well, there really were red flags, but I just didn't want to see them, right? That is our 50%. Or maybe you're the person who was unfaithful, but you were unfaithful for a reason, not as a justification, as what wasn't happening in the relationship, what you weren't talking about, how you were feeling that you weren't talking about. Because when you really think about infidelity, I would say 98% of the time in my experience as a therapist, it really is not about the other person. It's about what is not happening in that union, in the marriage, that something is wrong. It's a symptom. Somebody cheating or stepping out or wanting to step out or emotionally stepping out is an indication. It's a symptom of something wrong within the relationship. So it's easy to be like, no, the relationship was great. They just stepped out. It's on them. But it's very unlikely from a therapeutic point of view that that's actually what happened. Because in every situation, no matter what it is, you are 50% of the dance that you're doing. Even if it's a dance that puts you in a very unempowered situation, because your 50% is staying in that unempowered situation. So, getting rid of regret and being willing to dig into the crap stew to get the gems of wisdom that will help you on your own evolutionary path. Right? Because no matter how we look at it, you guys, we want to be partnered. I mean, I think real love, we all want that experience. But the truth is that you come in alone and you go out alone in this life. And that one of the primary relationships that you have in this lifetime has to be with yourself. And that's the next tip, is that self-love is the only path to real love, in my estimation, as a therapist. So if you're seeking outside of yourself in these relationships, whether it's this one that got away, quote unquote, or one that you left that you're regretting, the reality is that you have to get that self-esteem. It is an inside job. Because any relationship that you get into, if it is not from this place of strength within you, if you don't know who you are, if you don't think that you have value, and you are seeking that other person to give you that external validation, the problem with that is that that person can give it or take it away. And then you're left not knowing who you are. So your job is to create an amazing relationship with yourself. Take time. Do your own personal work. Get healthy psychologically, right? And that is work. And you guys know, I mean, listen, I'm a psychotherapist. I can tell you, most people don't do it. They don't in life. They don't know how. It's still stigmatized, which is why I have a podcast and a YouTube channel, because I'm trying to normalize this path of self-evolution, because you could be so much more empowered in your life the more you know yourself, the more you set your intention to have a good, healthy, loving relationship with yourself. Because when you do that, that sets the bar for every other relationship in your life. So when you don't know who you are, and you let people treat you badly, you end up with the bar being low in your relationships. So it really does all come back to your relationship with yourself. So I want you to really think about, how can you make that better, you know? And the last thing I want to talk about in today's episode is about staying stuck. So have you ever met anyone and their life story is right in front of you, barely know them? I had this experience. I was at a wedding and I was seated next to someone. And the first moment I sat down, she told me her name and said that she'd been divorced for 20 years. And of course that wasn't what she wanted, but that was the way it worked out. I was like, okay, well, nice to meet you. Like, how does she even know I'm a therapist? She doesn't. I mean, I wasn't shocked by it, but what does it indicate to me, besides having not very good boundaries, is that this woman is so incredibly identified by the failure of her marriage. She is so still connected to that experience, even though it happened 2 decades ago. That she had a very successful business she told me all about. She had lots of her own money, traveled all over the world. But the first thing that she revealed to me, a virtual stranger, an actual stranger, not even a virtual, I mean, I was a stranger, was that she'd been divorced for 20 years and that she didn't want the divorce. So, what do you think that particular person might be gaining out of staying stuck in that place? Because this is what we need to look at. I call it getting unstuck, but the concept itself is called secondary gain. So it's basically, what is the unobvious gain for staying stuck in that story Whether the story is the one that got away, whether the story is I made one bad mistake and I ruined my life because my marriage ended, whether the story is he betrayed me or she betrayed me, so therefore I'm never moving on from that. I'm staying in this victimized place, and I want to make sure that other people don't forget that I was wronged in this way. So let's think about, what is the secondary gain? If you don't have to be in a relationship, if you are not out there looking because you say, oh no, love didn't work for me, I'm not doing that anymore, basically. So what do you get to avoid? So I'm going to give you a little downloadable PDF that goes along with this episode so that you can actually figure out the secondary gain for you if you're stuck in this situation. That there's a few questions that you can ask yourself, which is, what do I get to not do, not feel, or not face by staying stuck? So if someone stays stuck in a heartbroken place or believing that that person was the one that got away, what do they get to avoid? Well, they get to avoid being vulnerable in the dating world. They get to avoid putting themselves out there. They get to avoid rejection, right? Because if you don't even put yourself back in the game, you don't have to worry about being rejected because you won't be. So I want you to think about, in your own life, if you are still stuck on your ex, or if you are still ruminating about being wronged, can't get over the fact that someone betrayed you in some particular way, I want you to ask yourself those questions. What do you get to not feel, not experience, or not face by staying stuck? And secondary gain is a concept that I apply, I use it in all of my courses and what I teach, private clients. It's not just in love relationships that we can use it. In any area of your life where you find yourself stuck, you could use this secondary gain tool, or how to get unstuck, I sometimes call it, so people know what the hell I'm talking about, to really look at what is the benefit that you're gaining by staying stuck. Because I promise you, there is something that you're gaining, even if it's just that you're comfortable there, even if it's just that you've been in that place for so long that it feels so familiar, that staying there feels better than the fear of changing or moving. So I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about this episode. Did you find it helpful? Did you like it? And if you did, please share it with the people in your world who you think that it may help. But I'm curious to know if it helps you move on past this situation and getting past the blame, shame, guilt, trifecta of awful, because you can blame someone else or yourself forever and waste your amazing, one-of-a-kind life. And I so don't want that for you. So don't forget to please download the little cheat sheet that I made for you and let me hear from you. You can drop a comment on my YouTube channel or on the where my podcast is, right on the website. I always love to hear from you guys. I hope you did find this helpful, and as always, take care of you.